Get to the chopper!
You know what you are? You're one of those little fancy lads, aren't you?
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figured we'd squeeze a little juice.
We're still very early on here on the Unkind Rewind, and since we don't have a ton of actionable feedback or anything like that to, talk about Labyrinth, I figured it would make sense to let the audience who probably knows me get to know one of my other co-hosts, Sean McGrath. And you'll probably get to know me a little bit through this too, if you're coming into this somehow randomly. But I guess, Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good. What I'm wondering is if the actionable feedback that you receive is going to be like, we're good on Sean.
I've gotten good feedback about you so far. So
if it's like, we're okay with the contribution, anything more than that.
No, I don't think that's it. So, Sean, I guess, where did you grow up for the audience?
I think the best way... Yeah, I mean, it's a hard single word answer.
I know, it's hard for me too. Yeah. Because we both moved around a fair amount as kids.
Yeah, a lot of new schools.
Mm-hmm. I went to 4 different elementary schools in 4 different states. Or, sorry, 3 states, but 4 cities.
Had I started school in San Diego after first grade, I might have been able to compete with that. But we never made it that far. We had a brutal summer in San Diego.
Okay.
Nobody liked it. And then we pivoted for a plan B, which was Minnesota.
I didn't even know that you spent any time in San Diego.
Yeah.
So I'm learning new things here.
Things we find out. And one of their more brutal summers that they've had in the 80s. And I'm imagining that there were a few. So instead of a life on the West Coast, it was an adolescence in the Midwest. And then due to parents' job situations, found myself in Western Pennsylvania in a suburb of Pittsburgh for a couple of years, junior high.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and then back to Minnesota for high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then met you at the University of Minnesota.
Yep.
And then pretty soon after that, found my way back to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And was out in Portland, Oregon for what I thought was going to be like a 2-year plan. And that
turned
didn't
into
stick.
15, 16?
Almost 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I've been in New York City ever since. So, yeah, I mean, charting the flight pattern is a bit arduous, but East Coast, West Coast, Midwest.
You're born in New York, too.
Born in New York.
You skipped over that. You skipped straight to San Diego.
As I often do.
Yeah, as we all do. I'm most curious about what the deal with San Diego was.
There was some family that spoke of it like it was El Dorado, man.
Okay.
It was, I
mean, I like San Diego.
Like an uncle and a cousin, both associated with the Navy, who preached that.
Okay.
The California
so it wasn't
song.
like the theater scene, because I know that it's got an okay theater scene because of
Yeah.
what you see. San Diego's got a really good theater program, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like anything like that. My
Okay.
folks were both involved in theater, but nothing like that brought them there. I think it was just my mom had kind of had it with New York.
I'm sure it's very hard to raise young children in New York.
As we know.
Yeah.
With our co-host.
Fucking Adam.
So, yeah, I think she had her fill, and
Mhm.
despite San Diego not being what she was looking for, the promise of a completely new setting, I think, was attractive enough to make the move.
Now, was she from the cities? Is that why there was the return to...
No, that's the weird thing.
Okay.
It's like there was... my mom was from the East Coast, but spent most of her time in Hawaii. But for whatever reason, a lot of her family kind of emigrated there.
Okay. From Hawaii?
Yeah. Yeah.
You went the wrong way.
I know. I mean, talk to anybody in Minnesota. I mean, as you know, if once Minnesota gets its grips on you.
I mean, that's kind of that. I feel like people leave the place that they kind of grew up in and then end up inevitably. I mean, I didn't grow up in the cities, but fucking ended up back here.
Every time you try to get out, it is a little bit like the mob.
Kind of, yeah. They pulled me back in. So you and I both went to college for... Did you major in English?
Film. You were the English guy. I was the
I couldn't remember if you majored or minored in film. I mean, the film program at Minnesota was sorely lacking.
All theory, no
theory
practice.
and crit. There was one. Did you take the screenwriting class with Pope?
Yeah, Pope. Yeah.
Did you end up with anything?
No,
did you
of course
even
not.
write a feature in that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, what I wrote is so bad.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't want to read anything that I wrote when I was like 23 or 20. I guess we were 20. Fuck, you were 21 at the time, right?
It was about like a drill sergeant whose men keep dying. He's retired.
Sure.
I mean, there was some kind of Colonel Troutman-esque elements to it about having to go and like save the one guy who is still
Troutman's what's his fuck from Rambo, right?
The Colonel from Rambo. Yeah, it was so bad. But yeah, I mean, I got through my university studies, I think I don't know. I didn't feel, did you ever feel particularly challenged?
In school? No.
Yeah.
No, we both graduated early. I took 2 summer classes and graduated in 3 years. We walked in the December graduation.
We got done a little.
That was an epic walk. They wouldn't call my. We had planned out. Okay, so we had planned out this whole like officer and a gentleman thing playing out, where Sean was going to do a huge pratfall on stage when they gave him his diploma, and I was walking right after him, and I was going to carry him out in my arms, and they wouldn't call my fucking name.
They were so alarmed by what had happened
Yes.
with the pratfall, not knowing it was a bit.
And then I could only mug.
I know. And I was committed.
Yeah, you were committed, but like they would not call my name. So I couldn't walk out and carry you off. So you had to limp off the stage.
In hindsight, with a couple of rehearsals, we would have.
I know.
We would have waited until your name was called.
Yeah, you would have slipped after my name was called. Yeah, for sure.
It would have taken your thunder and your applause.
This was at the University of Minnesota. The applause was a light smattering of claps from the family members who were in Northrop Auditorium, which is gigantic. The applause wasn't a thing that was heard, especially in December.
Yeah, a couple of smacks. Yeah, it was a weird time to graduate. And then, you found your way to Texas. I found my way to the West Coast, and we kind of built our forts.
Yeah, we've always like come back to like, oh, we should do something.
Yeah,
and then it always kind of falls apart.
Yeah, and like a lot of things, and like regardless,
it's just hard to make things work when you're not in the same place, I think.
Yeah, and also just like anybody who's in the creative pursuits, if there's not that deadline and there's not that request and need for it, if you're just kind of putting something creative into the ether, that may or may not get produced, and no one is clamoring for it. The only manager is you.
Yeah. And it's very easy to not do that, especially we're not working a ton now, but for years and years and years, you were working 3 jobs. I was working 3 jobs.
Yeah. I had my hourly job that I would do for health insurance, and then I would use that as the safety net, as the bedrock.
Yeah.
That would pay rent, and then I could,
Then you could pursue creative ventures.
There were times before that safety net job, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you got to Portland in 2002 or 3?
2, yeah, like late summer 2002.
So in Portland, it didn't take you too long to sort of ingratiate yourself into the artistic community. How did that start?
First couple years was doing stand-up.
Mm-hmm. Was it mostly mics?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever get to the point where you were like featuring or anything like that?
No, I mean, there were maybe like 2 or 3 things in my life that I've ever been paid to do stand-up. Mm-hmm. I did a employee party.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Was it for your company? Were you working there?
No, it was for...
Did this happen because of Livewire?
No, before that.
Okay.
Yeah, I bartended and waited tables when I first moved to Portland.
It was a weird time when you did that, too, because it was hot on the heels of, just to put it time-wise, hot on the heels of the tech bubble bursting. Mm. And so, like, we basically graduated into a recession. Mm-hmm. And in Portland, unemployment at that time, because I had considered moving to Portland, but Portland specifically, unemployment was what, like 8% or something?
It was like serial killers were the thing that were mostly employed over there.
Yeah. And so you would have a different job every like 3 months because the restaurant you worked at would close.
I bounced around restaurants. I bounced around hotels. You know, there was... Because I had done writing with you at the Minnesota Daily, there had, occasionally was some freelance article I could maybe pull in and hope
Right.
that I get a little bit more, steady work from, but never actually got like a full-time position.
Mhm. Was that mostly at the Oregonian or?
No, just A&E things.
Okay.
Here and there.
Yeah.
One of the sites that I worked for was a adult website review
Mm-hmm.
page called, I think it was like the sexherald.com.
Mm-hmm.
And they reviewed like toys,
Sure.
direct-to-video movies, and then websites.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you'd get this assignment for the week that would be like, here are the 20 websites, and we need, 350 words on each of them.
Yeah.
And so you'd peruse them, I guess that's the best word for
Sure.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Highlight the pros and cons, and then advise the consumer if that was worth it. So, I mean, you take a job, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You take a job, you do it.
Yeah.
At that time. So, yeah, stand-up comedy would, I'd try to get a couple open mics a week. And then I was working a film festival, just kind of volunteer coordination, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And somebody advised me about Livewire Radio, which I hadn't heard of at the time. It was a new show, not produced for, but aired on our local public broadcasting radio, OPB.
And it ended up being syndicated too. Like we had it in
Yeah.
Austin. Yeah.
Yeah, ended up getting enough affiliates, and then PRI finally swooped in, Public Radio International. And that was like the bulk of my time there. I would say my first episode is being part of, and for those of you who don't know, Livewire Radio was a lot like a Prairie Home Companion template.
Contemporized.
Contemporized, yeah. You didn't have to be Lutheran.
Uh-huh.
And we had a host, we had musical guests, we had sketch comedy, we had characters, we had, people of note.
Yeah.
That would come on and talk, authors and politicians, and yeah, it was great.
Peter Buck was on once.
Yeah, he called you, right?
Yeah. The one call. Oh no, David Eggers wasn't on the show, was he? That was, you were at a book signing or something.
That was like,
right?
yeah, he was a guest, but he was doing a book signing in coordination with that.
Okay.
But yeah, Peter Buck once was playing with the -5, his band after the REM.
Yeah, with Scott McCaughey.
And I was like, oh yeah, my one of my good buddies is a big fan of REM. He's like, oh, cool. And I go, can you call him? And it's just like just a moment of like 1 or 2 seconds of just kind of a stare, and then okay. Yeah. And then I just called Josh and said, here's Peter Buck. I don't even know if I said here's Peter Buck. I was just like, hey, hang on.
I can't remember. I mean, obviously the phone call happened. So you were a writer and on-air talent on that.
Yeah, I came on at 24 as a writer and performer with their troupe, so to speak. And then through that job, you just met other creatives, other writers, other... Yeah.
Is that how you ended up in the acting scene also?
Not really.
Or were you pursuing that on the side anyway?
A little bit, yeah. I think I got an agent maybe the middle of 2006.
Okay, so you would have already been on at that point.
I would have been on Livewire, but, it was weird because it's not like what I did on Livewire translated at all.
Sure.
We were essentially vaudeville comics.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing commercial work and then TV and some independent movies kind of throughout my time there. And then, I was always kind of involved with sketch comedy to one degree or another. Yeah. Even before Livewire, we were doing short films, and then that transitioned to doing those 48-hour films, which we had some good success before we soured on the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, you made it to the national thing twice, right? Your, squad kind
Made it to the nationals twice. Our film won.
And you were directing, right?
Yeah, I was directing and then part of the writing team. Yeah. Very, very rarely would I act. I said I would act if somebody no-showed. Yeah. Because you only have 2 days or maybe 1 day to shoot it. So if somebody is hungover or sick or can't get off work, then suddenly I was like, okay, well, I'll just do it.
Right.
But had good success a little bit with that, and then just kind of realized the futility of it in some ways.
Because what's it ultimately going to get you?
Exactly. Yeah. It's an exercise in just the challenge. Can you do a short film in 2 days?
I mean, it helps you get chops. As far as making something.
Absolutely.
It's not like it doesn't have a purpose, but at a certain point, it sort of stops being what you need it to be.
In terms of just grit and adaptability, kind of adjusting on the fly.
Oh, yeah.
Great primer.
Yeah, but it's also 48 hours and building something around certain prompts. Mm-hmm. Creatively, it's limiting what the end product can be.
Yeah. And all those movies are on YouTube under Cinema Syndicate.
Like, I thought Tooth and Nail was great.
Yeah, mockumentary about a vampire running for state senate. Kind of, I mean, with respect to Guest and Rob Reiner, I feel like we were a little bit before, like, the deluge of mockumentaries.
Right.
That kind of came in after that.
I mean, I guess the British Office had already happened.
Yeah.
British Office is the thing that set all of that off.
Yeah. So I started my own sketch show in 2014 called Bath Night, which I just kind of got tired with the X factor of a cast.
Yeah.
With regard to sketch comedy. Like, you always have this 4 to 8 person cast, like a band.
Mm-hmm.
But if people fall out with one another, if schedules don't work, well, then it's difficult to kind of rehire temporarily, or maybe the group just expands. I never really liked that. So the formation of the sketch group that I started was based on that the cast would change every time I would do a show. And I would just not rely on a cast to write, which oftentimes you did have to do in sketch comedy.
Yeah.
By just writing it myself. And yeah, hope to do another one of those shows. And
how many have you put on?
So we've done a couple sketch festivals, but full runs of shows.
When you rent out a black box theater.
Yeah. We've done 3 years of those.
Okay.
Hopefully more. But yeah, it's tough right now just to, especially in New York, with just the hurdles you have to kind of get over.
Right.
Financially, and also just building the community post-COVID in theater. I got an email today that UCB is slinking back to doing shows. They were out in LA post-COVID, but they did not come back to New York.
Right. It's too expensive. They closed the bigger LA store, too. They only had the Franklin location open in LA.
And yet so many people have kind of come from those stages.
The issue, of course, is that they don't have a liquor license and therefore don't make any money.
Yeah.
It's all ticket sales. Well, ticket sales and people paying to take the classes.
Yeah, and basically paying performers with spotlight and exposure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Bullshit. Yeah.
I mean, the stand-ups in the 70s in LA fucking basically rioted over that treatment. At the store and the Improv.
This will be great exposure is always the biggest red flag you can get into as an artist. Because, you can't pay your rent with exposure.
Nope. Sure can't.
So, yeah, I found my way eventually to New York, just as kind of the confluence of getting fed up with the difference basically between how Portland talked about being a haven for artists and how they actually...
Just like Austin did, yeah.
Yeah, and how they actually valued them.
Yeah.
So, look for a bigger market, found a bigger market. We'll see if it sticks, but...
Yeah.
So far, so okay.
New York's unforgiving.
Yeah.
But your cost of living is relatively kept in check. And you at least have a commercial agent, so...
That's true. Doug Keston, one of the best in the biz. And we'll see. Maybe this is the year that the thaw finally happens and people kind of...
Yeah, you start to make headway in casting rooms.
Yeah, it was bad timing, you might say, with COVID, because it felt like...
You were starting to pick up steam, you were starting to get more jobs, and then...
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of connections, too. Like a lot of those things that...
But you have to be able to go into a room to make those.
Yeah. All of those early burgeoning relationships, friendships, collaborations.
Died on the vine.
Yeah. Just died from exposure, sitting there on the hill. No food, no water.
Yeah. So you have been in some things. We should talk about some of them, I think.
We should probably wait until it comes up, right? I mean, do you think that we'll actually get to a point where somebody will recommend it?
Yeah, I guess it's been... 15 years?
15 years, yeah.
Eventually, we will have someone who...
16 years. So if someone was, say, 15 or 16...
Yeah, about
when that came out,
yeah.
They're about 30.
Uh-huh. It'll probably happen.
We, of course, talking about...
Yeah. Sean was in Twilight.
I was in Twilight.
Yeah.
I like to say
Are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
I think both would be an adversary to us.
Sure, okay.
Being that both...
So Team Neither.
Edward... Yeah, Team Neither. You could say Team Neither. You could just say Team Frat Boy.
Sure. Sean was one of the... you are credited as Frat Boy number 2, right?
I'm 4. I like to say I was the upperclassman.
Okay.
And I was older than those guys by 2 years, maybe.
Sure.
But yeah, the frat boys that confront Circle.
Yeah, you pass by when she's in the shop in... Is it Forks? Is that the town that they're supposed to be in then?
That's the town.
Or is it Port Angeles?
That's the town they're supposed to be in, yeah.
But they were shooting in Port Angeles?
Shooting in Port Angeles and Scappoose.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we, of course, after she gets a book about vampires, we corner her, circle her.
By her car, yeah.
She doesn't have a car, so she's just in a parking lot.
Right?
Yeah, like a derelict. And
okay.
we kind of come out of the shadows. As I've said before, we are the most dangerous real aspect of Twilight.
So yeah, you're in Twilight. You're in a few indies that people can watch.
Yeah, like there were bigger roles in smaller things, and then very small roles in bigger things.
I mean, you're the star of Deep Dark.
Deep Dark, Michael Medalia's, I believe, debut feature.
I seriously actually really like that movie.
Yeah, it's worth the watch.
Not just the, like, oh, my buddy's in this. Like, I actually really like Deep Dark.
Yeah, I think that's on Prime. And then a million years ago, I was in an independent war movie, World War II movie called Every Man's War.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's things that are out there. I did a couple TV shows that were filming in Portland at the time.
You were in a Leverage. You were in a Librarians, right?
A Grimm.
Grimm, yeah.
Yeah, so those types of TV shows that would pass through town.
Not Portlandia.
Not Portlandia. No, that was...
much to your chagrin.
All
of your friends were in it.
Not true. The key to Portlandia was always to get in early. Like, if you could get in that first season, they would reuse you.
Yeah. Different
roles, sometimes the same role, but you really, really had to kind of elbow in to the elevator that first year, because after that, they were pulling like Tim Robbins and Brigitte Nielsen and Steve Buscemi. Yeah, and Kyle MacLachlan. I mean, yeah, he was kind of I think he was in the pilot episode or close to it. But yeah, you'd see
Amy Mann would be playing a part.
Jeff
you would think
Goldblum, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, those were roles that would typically be farmed out to local actors. And of course, if you can get Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, you're going to get Jeff Goldblum.
And he's going to probably do it for nothing.
Yeah.
Just because he wants to play. Then, yeah, you go ahead and you get Jeff Goldblum and you tell the local actors to sit this one out.
Yeah. And you're like, this is IFC money, right, Jeff?
We're good here. Yeah. And, I had lived with an editor, one of my roommates, who edited Portlandia and kind of learned about how the sausage was made on that show. Yeah, I didn't miss it, not being on that show. I don't know what it would have done.
Right.
I can't think of somebody who actually got on that show who...
It was a 2-person show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a little, a bit of a cliche that said, if you get on Portlandia, don't be funny. Like, they don't want you to stand out. They don't want you to pull focus. It's Fred and Carrie show, and rightly so. They want the
humor's coming from them, and everyone else are straight people.
Exactly.
Straight in the parlance of the industry, straight men.
Yeah, set it up, let them spike, and they're both very funny. And I've met them both, and they've been nothing but charming and funny in limited, very off camera interactions.
So in New York, you've been doing commercial stuff that people would have seen during the pandemic. There was the MLB ad that you were in that literally any baseball fan saw you every fucking commercial break.
Yeah, that played a lot.
If you were streaming it on the app, it was seriously. Brian was like, Sean, Brian, who will be on for
friend of the pod.
Yeah, friend of the pod. He'll be on. We have him scheduled in a couple weeks. But he was like, Sean, I'm seeing you every commercial break, because he's watching his Mets on MLB.tv, and he is seriously seeing you like 15 times a game.
And that might have been before I met him too. Like, he had only kind of known me. I don't think
we were in the league together all the time. But
we were in the league, but I don't think I met Brian till he came out to New York.
Okay. Were we doing Zoom trivia at that point?
Probably.
We were doing Zoom trivia at that point, but that was the only way he like knew you was through Zoom. Yeah.
Through Zoom. And being in a baseball league with him, fantasy baseball league, and then just inundating his broadcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've
you had kid hands with Orlando
Pace,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see
bunch of Bud Light ads.
Yeah, to Bud Light, I've worked with them a few times, and commercial actor, I would say.
You've also directed a fair amount of ads.
Yeah, I've been involved with kind of directing and maybe writing some branded content, both in Portland and also in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Would like to do more of that, but right now working on kind of longer things, working on a play, working on this venture called Cinequote.
Oh, yeah, we should obviously talk about that.
So Cinequote was just essentially looking around the internet for a game that hadn't been invented
Yeah.
And one of my best friends from high school and I just decided to invent it. So, an easy way to say it is it's kind of like Wordle, but for movie quotes. Mm-hmm. But if you have a little bit more time, you just hear 5 quotes from a movie. Mm-hmm. Starts hard, starts a bit obscure, and then gets progressively easier. Yeah. All 5 quotes are from the same movie. I'm sure that your mind is like hard conditioned for this type of game, but yes. We like to think that anybody can kind of play it. Mm-hmm. Just don't. I would say, like, it's okay if you miss a day or two.
Yeah.
Because we do change the genre. We do change the decades quite a bit.
Yeah.
In the course of a week, we might have quotes from The Princess Bride, RoboCop, Casablanca, Saving Private Ryan, Bend It Like Beckham.
And 84 Charing Cross Road.
And then 84.
You asshole.
Charing Cross Road. If anybody knows that movie, boy, you
no one did.
It was a very high fail rate that day.
It was over 90%, right?
It was almost 90.
I mean, I don't know anyone who's seen that movie.
You know what it was? I think it was a movie that certain school districts had as a substitute rainy day movie. I
think it was just your school district. The only people who got that right are people who you went to school with.
And you might look. I'm not going to get into the weeds on who was cheating and who wasn't, but like you could probably figure out it was Anthony Hopkins, and you could probably figure out it was Anne Bancroft, and so we might just say, Josh, to let this one lie, that 10% of people cheated that day.
Yeah, I feel like 10% did.
And like anything from Wordle to the crossword, you can cheat if you want to, like whatever. That's on you. But yeah, it's a lot of fun for me to kind of make, because it makes me revisit these movies that maybe have been 20, 30 years, which is a lot like this podcast. Uh-huh. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but sometimes you just, God damn it, you end up watching the whole fucking movie.
I'm sure, yeah.
I went back and you're like cutting audio clips for Die Hard with a Vengeance, and suddenly you're like, God, it's been 2 hours?
Yeah.
What the hell happened?
I was only going to pull quotes.
Why do I hear Birdsong? Oh, yeah, that's 5 a.m. Okay. Well, I guess I just watched that.
Yeah, that happened. So that's you and Flet, obviously. Flet, who also did the randomizer for Munch My Benson.
Yeah, the great Flet.
Episode.lol. Anyone can use it. You can watch it. You don't want to think about a show.
Yeah, put in a TV show, hit the randomizer, let episode.lol do all the hard work. So yeah, I've showed up on the radio in various forms in the last 20 years.
Been on people's screens.
I've been on people's screens, and now I'm podcasting.
In people's ears. And this isn't your first foray into podcasting, though. I know the fight one was very niche.
I've been a guest on podcasts here and there. I can't really remember which ones. I was on a podcast maybe a year ago where it was people who were just looking at movies and television made in Oregon.
Okay.
And so they actually did a Deep Dark episode.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I popped in on that one. But yeah, I ran one of those weird like little frills of your resume where you're like, I was a journalist covering the UFC for about a year as a freelance journalist for the Oregonian covering Ultimate Fighting. And then, maybe it was around there. I can't remember.
I mean, it was a time when there were a bunch of fighters, or not a bunch, but a handful of fighters working out of the Portland area that were pretty big.
There was a famous gym out there called Team Quest, and the proximity to that allowed me to kind of interview famous fighters who were training there. Like,
you interviewed Randy Couture, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Nate.
And I interviewed Dana
Chael Sonnen.
Yeah. And Dana.
Mm-hmm.
I got Dana for about 20 minutes, which was great.
Yeah.
But around that time, I was doing a podcast called The 10-10 Round.
Yeah.
With the great Tony St. Clair, who will be can't say too much about this, but will be a published author by this time next year.
Nice.
Lips sealed. But we talked the fight game, and just one of those weird little hobbies that became a job for a time. But not my first podcast.
No.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's probably good for now. I mean, people will get to know us.
Probably more than good for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get to know us through the show. But I've known Josh since freshman year.
Yeah, 1998.
Wow.
A long fucking time. And definitely first quarter, because it was quarters still. We were the last year of quarters. It's our freshman year. Because we met in a film class, and we were in the same dorm, but we met in 1901. intro to
yeah,
film.
and that was you're the strongest connection I have from those days. Like
easy.
I've retained,
well, other than my wife.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Other than the person you married.
Uh-huh.
And I've been friends with your wife for a long time too.
Yes.
She's
We've been friends
since
since
one of the best people. But yeah, I've retained most of my Minnesota connections to my high school buddies. But Josh is, you're the banner guard for college.
Yeah. Likewise. Cool. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yes. Cool. So now we're going to kick to the pre-interview with Leon for Night of the Creeps, which was super fun.
Can't wait.
And Leon is, he's probably back already, but when I was in LA, he was working locations on the new PTA movie.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, he was up in NoCal shooting that super secret Paul Thomas Anderson movie that not even the crew knows if it is or is not an adaptation of Vineland, the Thomas Pynchon novel.
But we're sure it's not a remake of Night of the Creeps?
It could be. I don't know.
Wow.
Like 0 crew members know if it is.
So it's possible. Night of the Creeps.
Yeah, it could be.
Remade.
It could. Yes, sure.
You can't unequivocally say.
I was very jealous of him when I found out that he was working on Night of the Creeps remake that Paul Thomas Anderson was doing.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, you heard it here first. It is most assuredly not a Night of the Creeps remake. But yeah, the crew did not even know if it was because it's rumored online, but no one knows. So.
All right, fingers crossed.
It's weird when a friend is working on a show that you're like, oh, fuck, man, I wish I was working on that show.
Well, good for Leon.
Yeah. But yeah, Leon's pre-interview will be coming up here in a second. And then next week, it'll be the main event, Night of the Creeps, Fred Dekker film. Fun movie.
Fred Dekker vehicle.
Well, thanks, Sean.
Cool, guys. Or guy. See you, Josh.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unkind Rewind. We are greeting our next guest this week and touching base with him before he's rewatched the movie that he's not seen since his childhood. This week, we're joined by Leon Henderson, a buddy of mine from L.A. Leon, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, I'm Leon Henderson, Jr., there's not many Leons left in the world. I think they all died out in the 70s. So most people are like, oh, I have an uncle named Leon. It's never like a cousin or a friend. It's always an
my
uncle.
best buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle named Leon. It's like, oh, cool. And it's usually like white people, which just weirds me out. Like, wow. Because I guess it's it's a Latin name? Or like Latin. And,
from like Leonidas or something like that.
Yeah, like Latin and, like the Romance languages, Spanish and all that.
Sure.
But I've never met any other Spanish people. They tell me it's always a bunch of white guys.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of black people. Like,
Sure.
Uncle named Leon. Then they say, oh, he died. I'm like, oh, cool. Thank you.
R.I.P., I guess. So, Leon, I guess you don't have anything to plug right now. Not that you won't, maybe in the future.
No.
As it goes with everything, sure went this way with this podcast for, I don't know, the year and a half that we were developing it. It's hard to get stuff off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I could give people my Cash App. Hey, Cash App me. just in case you a boy want to send some money.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Cash App, Venmo,
Yeah. But we know each other from, I'm assuming we didn't sign any NDAs that preclude us from being able to say that we work together on The Voice.
No.
I think that's still okay. I think we can say that. We have IMDb pages that put us on that show.
Right. So I'm pretty sure no one followed rules on that show.
No. Yeah, so you're in LA, you've sort of moved on from The Voice and you're doing location work, right?
Yeah, I do location work for film and TV, and I get yelled at from neighbors and crew members about things.
Yeah.
Hey, why did you pick this location? I don't know. Ask the production manager, director, everyone else but me.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm just the person. I'm the punching bag today.
Right. I'm the guy that you yell at for.
Yeah.
Hey, why is the toilet working? Well, don't clog it. Hey, do you understand how toilets work?
Yeah.
How sewage system works? But it's fun. It's fun. You get to meet a lot of cool people. You get to meet some jerks too.
Yeah.
On both sides. But I mean, it's cool. I enjoy it at times. Sometimes, but I have to talk to every single person.
Yeah.
So you're just mentally exhausted most of the time.
Oh yeah.
It's fine.
Kind of same capacity when I'm having to coordinate or PM on a
Oh
shoot.
man, people always say, I don't want your job. No, I don't want your job. I don't want your job at all.
I think I'm retired. We'll see. So, I mean, your list, we could have done an entire season on the movies. We were talking about this, like that. Me and Adam and Sean were, but yeah, we easily could have done like an entire season off of just the movies from your list. But the one that we chose to do for the show this time around, at least, was Night of the Creeps, which, to be frank, at least Sean and I'm pretty sure Adam's also not heard of it. None of us are familiar with this movie.
Really?
It's possible Adam's seen it, but I thought he also said it. Sean has definitely never heard of it, nor have I. So since we haven't seen it, and it's very possible the listeners haven't also, memory can be kind of tricky. So briefly, just describe for the listeners what you recollect as having been the plot. Just rough, broad strokes plot of the film.
Easy. It's just like a campy 80s alien like takeover movie. But it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets Dawn of the Dead type. Like it's 80s completely. And I loved 80s movies.
Oh yeah.
And I was just telling my wife today, growing up, my dad was and still is a huge horror fan.
Okay.
So he watched horror movies and just movies all the time.
Right.
And he was big on like having cable. Like we had cable when I was a kid.
We didn't.
And like I'll talk to other people, and they were like, "You didn't have cable." Like my dad would let the lights go off before the cable went off. So he said, "We can't see anything." Hey, well, HBO is still on, so let's.
And you guys always had the movie channels?
Always had the movie channels. Always had even like the regular cable,
Sure.
Like in the 90s and stuff. So all those movies that would come on, I just remember my dad, and he used to rent movies too. Yeah. So he used to rent movies. Like I remember like Maniac Cop.
Love Maniac
like
Cop.
all these crazy films.
Yeah.
And
Love
I'm
Maniac Cop and Samurai Cop. Both awesome.
Yeah. I'm 3rd, 4th grade, and I'm watching this stuff. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" But my dad would watch it, and I would watch it with him. But like with Night of the Creeps, it's basically in the beginning, it's this alien ship, and there's like these doofy looking aliens, like I don't know, this weird prosthetics. Sure. Yeah. And they basically drop some kind of waste or something out of the ship. It lands on the planet, and it's kind of like a high school love story in a sense, like the nerd trying to get the girl.
Sure.
Like the guy it's like some guy in the field finds this thing, and it's these little slithery creatures. Okay, and they kind of like get in the town, and they take over the town, and it's like prom night. See, prom night or like homecoming night. So it's like a build up to the end.
Yeah. Do they snatch people by going up their holes?
Yeah, they get in their mouths, and like the prosthetics for this movie.
We're not seeing any rectal entries.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, it did.
That's the thing. I don't remember that, but I remember there's like a cryogenic scene. Okay. Where I think it gets in somebody and they get frozen or something. Like when you see it, it'll remind you of all the campy 80s horror, sci-fi. because I'm like, I love sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
I'm not like a huge like slasher person.
Sure.
But
But,
I'll
like
watch-
They
I
Live, or
yeah, they
yeah.
like I love stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the Friday the 13th, and I did watch Halloween. I wasn't a huge Halloween person, but Friday the 13th, just because it was so corny, it was like this dude is literally walking, and y'all can't escape him. So
he'll never stop walking though. Jason Voorhees doesn't stop walking.
right, like he's not running anywhere.
Yeah,
he can't swim.
No, he just trudges.
Right. So yeah, it's basically like just a alien takeover movie with kind of like the Revenge of the Nerds type vibe with the guy trying to get this girl.
Sure.
And I think it's not high school. I think it's college.
Okay.
I want to say, and I think the girl is in a sorority. This is like some kind of party, either some kind of
Right. Homecoming or some
sorority
shit.
party. Yeah, something like that. I think that's the build up to the end, and then he like becomes like a hero, and But I think it's 80. It's either between 86 and 88.
I think it's 86.
I think it's 8. Yeah, I think it's 86. So,
I only know this because I had to look it up.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it. I honestly am shocked that you hadn't seen it.
Well, I mean, I didn't have HBO growing up, so it's one of those like if you didn't have HBO,
they used to play it on. It used to come on like TBS.
Yeah, we didn't have
They
cable.
used to play it on TBS and also all the time.
There's a lot of that stuff that I didn't see until my 20s.
Yeah, I was lucky. I got access to like all these
Yeah.
weird, like super
Sure.
weird movies. That's probably how I am today. It's like, why are you watching this? You should not be seeing this.
So, like, how old were you when you saw this for the first time?
I might have been like 9 or 10.
Okay.
I want to say.
Is it like PG-13? Or is it an R?
I think it's R.
Okay. All right.
I
hope
think
so.
it's R. Yeah, I think
It's always
R.
really funny to me when kids, because that's not a thing that happens anymore, really. But when kids are just like, I watched this wildly inappropriate movie when I was fucking 8,
Yeah,
And-
I think
yeah.
I think it was 8, like between 8 and 10. I
Yeah,
wanna
it was
say I
definitely.
like 9 or 10.
It feels like that's a thing that stopped with our generation.
Oh yeah. They were like, oh my god, there's I don't know, whatever. And they're like, you can't watch that. So, because my wife, she didn't watch TV when she was younger like that.
Yeah,
like her dad would let her watch the Cosby Show, and I was like, you can't watch the Cosby Show.
Yeah,
like, what could you watch then?
Pretty milquetoast.
Right? Like you couldn't even watch Little House on the Prairie. Like, is that what you watched? But I always make fun of her about that. So.
Sure. Yeah. So what do you think you were like as a kid when you were watching this movie? Like, you watched this a lot when you were a kid, I assume?
Yeah, every time it came on, I would try to check it out.
Yeah.
I think because I always was into just anything sci-fi, anything space, anything aliens.
Sure.
And then anything like creature involved. Plus, in the 80s, they actually used the prosthetics.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't age like milk?
Oh, it definitely ages. You'll watch
it doesn't age like milk like this CGI does where like it looks so bad a year later.
Yeah. You can still watch it today, and cause I mean, even like The Blob, the remake from like 80,
86, I think. Yeah,
I could watch that today, just because
you can watch The Fly today.
Yeah. I watched that probably, I think maybe a couple years ago.
Sure,
the David Cronenberg.
Yeah,
and like I've seen a lot of his movies. I'm like, dude, what the.
Yeah, he's doing some pretty crazy shit with prosthetics.
But it's prosthetics, man. I think it saves the movies at times.
Oh, absolutely. The first one we recorded for this was Labyrinth, and there's like, oh no, it's puppets, like.
Yeah.
it doesn't age as poorly because like it's practical effects.
Right.
Yeah.
You can still use that today. I mean, even like Willow.
Mm-hmm.
Like the scene where the dragon turns into dragon. That's still cool. Like the CGI is whatever, but
sure,
it still looks cool. Mm-hmm. Like seeing that as it changes, and you can tell. Like nobody's like, "Oh man, that happened in real life." It's like, no, guys, it didn't really. Didn't really happen.
When do you think the last time you saw this was?
Man, it has to be at least 10 years. At least 10. Like I'm thinking, I don't know if I've seen it since I've been out here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I might even watch it with my dad. Because we used to watch the movies together sometimes and just laugh.
Did you have this recorded off of TV or anything?
No. I would just always watch it.
Sure. It's like Real Genius for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just watch it like just on when it came on.
Uh-huh.
I never had like a copy of it.
I'd watch Real Genius on HBO East and West. Same day.
Yeah. Like I've done that. Like, I can watch it again. Let me turn this on again.
Yeah, fucking A. Well, and TBS used to like cycle. If you watched it in the afternoon, it might be on again at like 3 a.m, right, or 2 a.m. or something. Yeah.
HBO too. I don't know if they do this anymore, but they would play something really, really early. Maybe like they might play at like 8 a.m. or something,
sure.
And then they would play it again,
right,
later that night.
Yeah,
as a premiere, so you could watch it.
Right. When it first drops, it's going to play like 6 times that first week.
Yeah.
So, do you have any memories that like particularly stick out about Night of the Creeps? Like scenes that stuck with you, or watching this with your family, or whatnot, like hanging out with your dad watching this or something?
I remember, I think it was some scenes where, particularly how they get in your body, it's just like an orifice or whatever.
Sure.
I remember seeing. I think it got into a dog.
Okay.
Like he ran into a dog and the dog went around, and then they like spit, like the animal or the person or whatever spits it out into another person. So it's like parasitic in a sense. Mm-hmm. But then I think it gets like it's like a bunch of them, and they it's kind of like the hive mentality with the creatures.
Okay.
It's so weird explaining this because this movie is.
Yeah, Adam and I just did The Puppet Masters for the Much My Benson Movie Club, which is same vein. And yeah, I'm very glad we didn't have to describe what the plot is. Because at a certain level, it's kind of nonsense.
I mean, this one is pretty like straightforward. It's just like a campy, like one of those college movies where they had like the protagonist who's kind of like a nerd, and then he becomes like this hero in the end.
Yeah, because he's a nerd. His nerddom saves the world. Yeah. Did that resonate with you?
Probably.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, he wins.
Yeah.
You got the hot girl.
As a sci-fi nerd,
if he got her or not.
As a sci-fi nerd, did this click with you?
I mean, I think all of it does.
Okay.
All the sci-fi, anything sci-fi, even because sci-fi movies. Like you try to explain it to somebody, and like I'm not gonna watch that. Like okay,
right?
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll just watch them by myself most of the time. And my brother watched. Because my brother's like 4 years younger than me. But we watched all this stuff, man.
Sure.
My dad would, hip us to it. And sometimes we would just take the tapes when he rented and just watch them ourselves. So, it's raining here. Which is Christmas miracle. It's not Christmas miracle. No one can drive. It's terrible.
Yeah, when it's raining, you don't want to get in the car.
Don't leave the house.
Yeah, if it starts raining hard, basically the entire right third of the lane along the curb is just flooded.
Like, there's a funeral going on? It's like, no one can drive in the rain.
Yeah, we've got lanes that are just like non-operational right now. So, obviously, you haven't seen this in like a decade at least, maybe longer. What expectations do you have for your return to this now in 2023? Do you think it will have aged well, or do you think there are going to be problems?
Like, probably not. Because, I mean, a lot of 80s movies and 90s movies, but mostly like 80s.
Yeah.
Because of how the world is now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because I can't remember any of the jokes, but I'm just thinking because it's an 80s movie.
Right.
Because it's like right in that middle tier, like in the middle where like, remember like in 80, I think from like 85 to like 90, there was like a crap ton of movies that just came out. Everything was just hitting.
Yeah.
Even before then, 48 hours, another 48 hours and all that stuff beforehand. But like later on, the mid to late 80s, early 90s, there were so many like just And it's classics for a lot of people, but it's like, hey, you gonna watch that now? Or like, I want to show this to the third grade class. Like, no, probably shouldn't.
Don't do that. Maybe watch it again.
Yeah, have you watched this in 15 years?
So, are you most worried about it being problematic from a, I would assume, since
Like
we're
a political
talking 80s,
standpoint, or
or like problematic from a, casual homophobia or casual racism or that sort of vein, or I guess
not really, because I don't even remember any black people being in the movie. I don't remember,
which is a problem in and of itself, I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I just remember white people in the movie, but
Yeah.
I mean, it probably was like some black people in the background. I think
Sure.
on like the football team.
They're probably the first ones to get taken, get have their bodies snatched. Yeah.
I think that I don't remember any homophobic jokes. It might have been one or two when they made fun of like the guy
The
that's trying to
nerd.
get the girl, maybe.
Yeah.
But I
Sure.
seriously can't remember.
Do you think quality wise it's going to hold up mostly? Like, do you think you're still going to enjoy it watching it as a we're roughly the same age.
I think so.
As like a grown ass man with, I mean, you've got a wife, you've got a family.
Yeah, but I still watch that stuff.
Oh yeah. But like, I've definitely seen things where it's like, oh wow, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, like I'll still watch stuff and like because it keeps me going. Like I still have comic books. I still have
Yeah.
video games.
Sure.
I don't get to read or play that stuff as much.
Yeah, and you get to like look at it sitting on the shelf or
Yeah, I'm
look
like, oh,
at
wow.
the video game console. Yeah.
I bought a PS5 last year. I just opened it like 2 or 3 months ago.
Sure.
and I still
You haven't played a fucking
I played
game?
it
Yeah.
like maybe 3 times.
Yeah. Can
So-
you at least play DVDs through it?
yeah. And my wife had a whole bag of DVDs because she loved like rom-coms, and I used to make
Sure.
fun of her about that. But I like rom-coms too, but like if they're funny.
Yeah.
Like I like funny rom-coms. So I don't want to watch like a sappy, dramatic rom-com. Like, all right, let's just have some jokes. And like that's the thing too, now you don't have that type of comedy.
Right.
That we've been talking about,
Sure.
like the mid-tier, mid-budget comedy.
Yeah, they don't
that-
make what would now be a $15 million comedy doesn't get made in.
Yeah. If it don't have a superhero in it,
Mhm.
like don't.
Yeah,
don't-
those
don't pitch it.
movies disappeared, and now you're getting $5 million comedies or less that are going straight to Netflix or whatever.
Yeah,
And none of them are getting theatrically released.
right,
Almost
right.
none.
Like I would go to the theater to see, a funny movie, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird time as far as like just content.
Yeah. I mean, you basically have to have an A-lister or it needs to be an indie. There's no in between.
Right.
Jennifer Lawrence can get No Hard Feelings released
Right.
based on it being Jennifer Lawrence, but
Right.
that's kind of
And I think that was the last. That was like the last comedy, right? This summer. That came out like July.
Feels like it. I mean, Bottoms came out right around then, but
Bottoms- but
Bottoms
that
was an
was still-
indie.
It's
Yeah.
an indie though.
Yeah.
you know?
Bottoms was different.
Like those movies that get released, you'll see them, and a lot of people that were releasing themselves, but you don't hear about them as much as you would,
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, something like that.
And it's also much easier to have lost them in the last, 6 months since strikes
Yeah.
were going on, so nothing was getting promoted. But
Yeah, you couldn't promote anything, so
Yeah.
it's a different time. And I think with Night of the Creeps, seeing it today, I think I'll still enjoy it.
Mhm.
Because I don't let
you're able to look at it in the time.
I don't let outside noise like, hey, look, if you enjoy this for what it is, then you do it. As
Mhm.
opposed to like the Toxic Avenger. Like I was gonna put that on the list. Like I loved watching that. Like I watched that all the time.
We did
Those movies
Romeo
are-
and Juliet for Movie Club too.
Yeah, movies are terrible, but they're
Uh-huh.
great. You know what I'm saying? Like
oh,
a lot of those
absolutely.
movies at that time were politically incorrect.
Oh yeah.
Like-
A trauma film was politically incorrect.
you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah,
It's like,
it's
whoa.
like intentionally transgressive.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's like you kind of have to just enjoy stuff for what it is, as
Sure.
opposed to like, I'm going to put this label on it and then I'm going to call my representative to.
Right.
No.
No, I'm pretty much on the same page. I mean, There are certain things like, rape was played for jokes in the 80s, which is like in Revenge of the Nerds and 16 Candles.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that is like, oh no, that is, how is that okay? But
like Porky's,
yeah. But for the most part, I'm mostly concerned with what a movie's trying to be.
Right. Like, if you know what the whole, like, intent of the movie is.
Yeah.
I mean, just like a conversation. Like, I've talked to all different types of people.
Sure.
But if your intent is to be just a jerk about stuff, just to be a jerk, then why am I having a conversation with you? We just talking.
Uh-huh.
And
on a film set, you are going to run into that.
Oh yeah, a film set. That's everybody almost. Because like there was an incident that happened when I was on set before, like this past week, and it just made me like, man, I missed being here, but also that type of stuff, like the entitlement. I don't enjoy that,
right?
And it's kind of like, come on, man, we all just got back. We all just got back to work, and you just have to flip out. Like, you're a cameraman.
Like, you're like 6 months off. Didn't fucking like chill you out a little bit.
Yeah, not the DP or the director or the AD. Like,
yeah. You're not one of the 3 people for whom like your life really just sucks. And I mean, they're getting paid, but their life is like pure misery for the entire shoot.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like, you're the camera guy. You're getting paid more than I definitely am right now.
Yeah,
and everybody else. So. I think it's just the intent for a lot of things.
Sure.
If we look past that and just kind of like, all right, this is what it is, I can enjoy it as opposed to, oh, well, they were saying this and they were saying that. Well, yeah, duh. Because I think there's a movie that's out right now called Lady Ballers. And it's about
I mean, that's not really a movie, though. Let's be fair.
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, but I mean, that's like, it's fucking Ben Shapiro's company produced it.
Yeah.
Or no, Sean Hannity is an EP on it. Like, this is
really?
that. Yeah, it's not a real movie. It's only released to their streaming platform.
Yeah, I saw, because I know somebody that worked on it, and he was just showing it to me, and I was like, yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. Most people.
Wait, no, sorry. I'm confusing that and Jingle Smells. There's Jingle Smells, which is the Sean Hannity one. And there's Lady Ballers, which is that's produced by the Ben Shapiro company.
That's the Daily Wire. I just found out about that stuff.
But those are both like D-list actors headlining the thing, or Lady Ballers is not real actors. And it's just like, those are just like vanity projects that are basically troll jobs.
Yeah, it's a weird, just the time we're in about, what freedom of speech is and all types of stuff. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about that for Night of the Creeps, probably. Cool. Well, we'll check in next week, having watched this.
Yes.
And see how Night of the Creeps is aged. Could be fine.
I mean, I'm thinking it's fine.
Yeah.
Honestly. I don't remember. It's just, I just think about the time period where...
Sure. Yeah, you're judging it because of its release date, basically.
Yeah. It's like 86. Like,
oh, yeah. Lots of fucked up stuff was happening in the movie.
Say whatever the fuck you want to. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, cool. I mean, like, remember, God, man, I used to watch Soul Man a lot. Was it C. Thomas Riley?
C. Thomas Howell. C. Thomas Howell.
C. Thomas Howell, yeah.
Yeah, C. Thomas Howell. Ray Don Chong. Yeah.
Yeah, Ray Don Chong.
Yeah, he goes to Harvard on a scholarship as a black guy and has to be in blackface for the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 1988. That's like 2 years after this.
Yeah, that, and then even Short Circuit with
Fisher Stevens and Brownface.
Fisher Stevens playing the Indian guy, and like, then you find out, like, this is a white dude.
Yep. Yeah, you find that out when you're watching Hackers.
Yeah, it's like
wait, this motherfucker's white?
Like, yeah. So, I don't know. The 80s, man.
It could go anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the artistic output, but it's still like this weird dynamic of how it plays out today.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh, well, I love these movies, but I can't watch them anymore. Like,
You can still watch them.
still watch them.
Yeah.
Just, like, my mom let me watch Def Comedy Jam when I was a kid.
Sure.
But she was like, I just don't want to hear you saying it. She knows I curse like all the fucking time.
Right,
but
right.
just as me not saying it to her or like
Right.
hearing me saying it to somebody else, like I'm not gonna not watch it because yeah, some of the jokes are very outdated, but it's still funny.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like comedy, and that's another conversation too. You know?
Yeah, right.
Night of Creeps is funny though. I will
Okay.
say that.
Okay.
It's a funny movie.
Right on. Well, cool. Thanks for joining us this week, Leon, and thanks for letting us potentially ruin your childhood next week.
It should be a fun one.
Yeah, indeed. Is there anywhere where people can find you on social media or anything that you want to put out there? Other than Cash App and Venmo, which will be in the show notes.
Cash App and Venmo. Well, I have an Instagram, a couple Instagrams. I always forget what it is. I think it's Leon Jr. Photo. I'm a photographer and like videographer. And I have like a comedy page, Afros and Yarmulkes. I'm probably going to change the name. I just haven't changed it in probably
Sure.
10 years. I
Have you been
guess.
getting up on stage doing any mics or anything?
Not in a while.
Okay.
I did some maybe a couple months ago.
Okay.
Like October, November.
Was it like in the belly room or
No, I haven't been to the
store in a while?
store in a while.
Yeah.
I still talk to people.
Uh-huh.
I don't hang out as much. Like, you know,
I mean, it's hard to if you're in your situation.
Bring kids here. It's like, hey, why are your children here? It's like, oh, I have to bring them with me. It's like 11 o'clock. Like, oh, they're fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
it'll be cool.
Let's give them some cookies.
Yeah.
Nah, it's cool. I don't get a chance to get out as much, but I still write a lot.
Sure.
Still write.
Right on.
Little jokes here and there. But it, kicks your butt most of the time trying to.
Sure does.
Mentally trying to stay up. So
Yeah.
I'll drink a lot of tea. Like an old man.
Yeah. On that note, thanks, Leon. We'll see you again next week.
Of course.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate and review Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Goodpods, Yelp, IMDb, Consumer Reports, Google Reviews, and TripAdvisor. Links to all of our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as @Unkind Rewind Pod on nearly every social media platform that makes sense. If you had a question, concern, complaint, or positive feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com, or you can join the lively Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue with the pod may just make it into the next week's ep, so chat away. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.
The night of the fall is finally here. For Chris, Cindy, and JC. It's going to be the best night of their lives. But tonight is also the night of the creeps. From a world unknown comes a nightmare unimagined. First, they are under you, around you, on you, and then inside you.
They get in through your mouth, and you walk around while they incubate, even if you're dead.
They are a new breed of terror.
Freeze!
They are a different kind of horror.
Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies.
We could have a little problem.
The creeps are taking over.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You have never had a night like this. Night of the creeps. If you scream, you're dead.